November 1st, and welcome back to Inside the 18. I'm Michael Magid. With me is ex-MLS goalkeeper Patrick McLean.
What's up, guys?
And World Cup superstar Saskia Webber.
Hey, everybody.
This is the second time we've been doing this, and I'm not going to lie, guys. I don't want to do a third time. I want to make sure this is the last time. For those of you guys unfamiliar, this episode was supposed to come out last week, but we had some technical difficulties. Like, literally, it was just like...
Yeah, we decided not to subject you all to that.
Yeah. So we decided, you know what? We're like, Saskia, are you nice enough to come back? And she's like, absolutely. I just don't want to do it again about the same topics that we were doing. I'm like, oh, no. We're going to keep the same topics because this way, basically, like, we're going to do a better job than we did the first time, right?
You remember everything you said because that's what we're going to need you to say again.
I always like the first take, right? It's more real, but we'll see.
No, it's not going to be artificial in any way whatsoever, guys, because honestly, I don't remember what we said.
No, same.
So it's going to be pretty organic.
It was riveting, though.
Yeah, it was riveting. Guys, before we get into today's episode, which is we're going to be talking about organization and how it separates, a top goalkeeper from just a shot stopper, that sort of thing. I want to first off thank everybody who's been out there. First off, all the insiders who've been reaching out and being like, hey, I was waiting for this episode. It didn't come out, but you put out this other one instead. That's really cool that you guys still have this information out there and you're always making sure that we got something to listen to. That means a lot to us because, we're trying to make sure. And honestly, straight up, we thought about releasing that episode and we just said, you know what? We expect better from ourselves and we want more for you. So we want to make sure that you guys get good content, and I'm glad you guys enjoyed that interview with Todd Hofford. I think honestly that's a great topic. Clean handling is something that's very important, and I'm glad you guys got a lot out of that. And also, thank you for everybody who's been sending in your reviews. You guys have been fantastic. We're at over 106 in the United States and over 120 internationally, so that's a lot, whatever that is. Keep sending them in. We want to meet 200. Let's try to get 150 in the United States, guys, and then we'll get another scarf out to people. By the way, the winners still have not reached out to me. You have to DM or contact at Inside the 18 Media, goalkeeper training _ in Ireland. If you want your scarf, you got to reach out. And MKR15 in the United States as well, too. By the way, my favorite thing is they're probably going to listen to this episode like a month from now, and they'll be like, oh my gosh.
Oh, whoops.
Yeah, probably should have listened to that episode. So let's start out with some of these reviews just to kind of get going because we did this last week, obviously, but we want to make sure that you guys get the shout-outs that you guys deserve. So let's start off with I. Hallman 2020, and it goes, amazing and so very helpful, 5 stars. As a young goalkeeper myself, listening to this podcast has become a part of my game preparation and has helped develop me into a much better goalkeeper. I've recently made my high school varsity team, congratulations, as the starting goalkeeper and as a freshman, which is actually, that's huge.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. As a freshman on a team with seniors, I wasn't sure that I belonged or that I deserved to be in that position, but your podcast has helped me boost my confidence and my knowledge of the position, as well as I feel like a leader on the field. You have inspired me to try and become the best goalkeeper I can possibly be. Your podcast has benefited me in ways. I'm about to start tearing up. I'm not going to lie. This is amazing. I can't even begin to explain. I am so grateful that there is someone like you out here to help young goalkeepers like myself develop and learn about the position of goalkeeping. My only question is, as a young goalkeeper in a city without an MLS team nearby, how can I follow my dream to become a professional goalkeeper? What are the most important things for me to do in order for me to have the best chance to reach my goals? Thanks so much, and keep up the great work. First off, it's probably not it's probably like Isaac or something like that. Thank you for the shout out. Thanks for all that information. Congrats on starting varsity as a freshman. That's
Absolutely.
A pretty big deal.
Huge, yep.
Yeah, and I know that's difficult because obviously you're dealing with 17, 18-year-olds and to be in that leadership position. But just think of it this way: you wouldn't be in that position if you hadn't earned it and if they didn't respect you. So I want to kind of bring up this topic here of the MLS team thing because we're actually going to talk about some goalkeepers in the future in our week wrap-up that didn't make it through the national team program and didn't come through an MLS academy, and now they're playing at a very good level and they're playing at a high level. So anything's possible. So I want to start with Patrick. Patrick here. You played in rural Wisconsin. So what are your thoughts?
Yeah. Once again, congratulations on making your varsity team as a freshman. That's huge. I know you talk about I know you talk about not feeling necessarily like you belong, and I'd say to any goalkeeper who's in a similar situation, you belong because you were given that responsibility. So have confidence in yourself. The other players will have confidence as long as you continue to work hard and do the right things. As for the question about not having an MLS team nearby, that's not necessarily an issue. Obviously, these days it helps to be in an academy and to have those eyes early on, but it's not a necessity by any means. I would say as long as you are trying to find the best games, the best players, the best situation that you can find in your area, and that might mean commuting. Like I know myself, I had to commute 2 hours each way to practice and games when I was in high school, and that's just what I knew that I had to do to play with the best players that I could play with, and that was my unique experience. But I would suggest a similar experience for anybody who wants to play at a higher level is you got to find the best players that you can around, and that's who you got to play against.
Yeah. You know, Saskia, you've worked with players, you know, from the highest levels to lower levels. Mm-hmm. And, you know, a lot of times, you know, kids will be like, oh, I have to be on the best team in my area in order to become the best goalkeeper I can be. That's not necessarily always the best case for the kid, right?
Well, not necessarily. Like, you want to find the best training environment for yourself and what fits the best. I do agree. I traveled as well to play on the best team for myself. When I was in club and stuff, I played in Long Island, and I'm from New Jersey. If that's not available to you, still find the best training, still find the best challenge for yourself. And congratulations on making the high school team. I think sometimes we find kids get caught up playing with their friends and wanting to stay with their friends. But if those are your goals to go on and play pro, then you kind of have to choose what's best for you. Yeah. Your friends will be there. You got to choose what's best for you. Find that best team.
And your friends are going to understand because your friends want the best for you, you know. Everyone's got a different motivation on what they want in life,
Absolutely.
You know. And so, and another, I love the fact that you said, you know, find the best training environment for you, because what's the best training environment for Patrick might be a different best training environment for me. Yeah. It's about a coach that you tick with. It's about a program that you feel. You know, a lot of times the number one ranked team in your area, it might not be the best goalkeeper training program for you, you know? So you gotta really look and see what's going to make you the best player that you can be, what's going to give you best exposure. And ultimately, it's up to you to put the work in, you know?
Along those lines also, I just want to mention, don't get discouraged if you're in a situation right now where it's not necessarily the best, because ultimately it's up to you to decide what you get out of every training. And if you just write somebody off for maybe not being the best goalkeeper coach, then chances are you're not going to learn anything from them. And that time, that energy that you spend trying to get better is just going to be wasted if you're not open-minded about, you know, those things as well.
Yeah, and I like what you said about, like, necessarily playing for the number one team as a goalkeeper isn't the best exposure for you. Okay, like what influence, what are you doing for the team? If you're playing on the number one team and you're not making any saves in a game and you give up one goal, welcome to my life on the national team, then, you know, you have no saves and one goal against. But if you're playing for a good team, good coach, solid coach, maybe middle range, and you're making a difference every game, what you do in the game makes a difference, your saves, everything, now you're going to get noticed. You know, you want to be that game changer.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm just going to use an example right now that you're familiar with. Zach Steffen, who's on loan at Fortuna Dusseldorf, you know, which is, for lack of a better term, a team that's struggling a little bit in the Bundesliga right now. But Zach's getting a lot of playing time there. He's getting a lot of shots on him. He's getting a lot of action. And it's ultimately going to make him a better goalkeeper. He's still playing at a very high level. He's playing in the Bundesliga against teams like Bayern Munich and Borussia Dortmund and Schalke and all that sort of stuff. But it's not just, you know, he's standing there. You know, right. Ultimately, it's going to make him better. And that's why Man City sent him there, because they knew that was going to be the best environment for him to keep growing as a goalkeeper.
Yeah. I always think it's interesting, and we can talk about this or not. What is the right balance for a goalkeeper? Like, because Saskia said middle of the table, and I think that's a good point, because I've definitely been on teams where I've been when we've been the bottom of the table and I'm facing 20, 25 shots a game, you know?
That's not good either.
Right, because then you get kind of lumped into, maybe you saved 16 out of 20, but you're still losing 4-0.
Oh, when I played pro in Japan, we had just gotten moved up first division, and we were getting spanked. Like, it was horrible. It was great experience for me, but it at the same time, that many shots, that many saves isn't good as well, because you still want the people in front of you that are going to respond to your communication, your organization, which we're going to talk about. If you have players that aren't that good, to the point that it's like 20 saves a game and stuff, well, then that can be a detriment as well, I think.
I'm now really excited that we're now actually doing this episode again, because this is a wrinkle that I didn't even know about. And when we're talking about organization later, we need to talk to Saskia about how she did that in Japan.
Oh, it was brutal. It put me on the World Cup team, though, I will tell you that.
My point is, like, at what level or where exactly do you go from being considered a winning player to maybe a losing player? And
right.
Then those coaches aren't going to want necessarily a losing player, even if they are great. So it's always interesting to me, because
that's why I said a game changer.
Yeah.
Like a middle of the table. So when you play that number one team and you're getting a lot of the shots, that save you make, or those 2 saves you make, your team wins. And they might take that down the number one team all of a sudden because of what you've done in it. That makes a difference.
Yeah.
It's almost a situation of growing your character as opposed to your reputation.
Absolutely.
And they talk about this a lot. A lot of great coaches have addressed this point and how important that is. And that's where that, all the work that we put in comes in, is that character growth, instead of necessarily, he's playing for the best, she's playing for the best team. They're not facing any shots. Maybe their reputation is up here, but their character and their ability to actually do what will be required of them in the future is maybe not as high. So
Yeah. So basically what we're trying to say to you, is make sure that you play for a low-tier high school, so you get a lot of shots, but not so bad that everyone just goes like,
Whatever.
That person doesn't know what they're doing.
Yeah.
So make sure you at least make the playoffs. Just make the playoffs, barely make the playoffs, because of you. That's why they made the playoffs.
Yeah.
It's posted.
No, watch their team's like the number one in the state or something like that. I'm
Well,
like,
no.
all right, never mind.
Yeah. You're already doing the right
Yeah.
thing. You're a
Yeah,
freshman on varsity. Keep up the hard work,
Yeah.
man.
Absolutely.
By the way, we're probably talking like a full national teamer in one day. All right, let's move on to this next one. This one goes Goalkeeping 101, 5 stars. So now it sounds like it's going to be like a tutorial on goalkeeping. So, and it goes, as a former goalkeeper from South California, I really appreciate this podcast. It allows for the youth and those that still like to be informed how and what is important in goalkeeping. My question to you guys, has the Mexican style / South American keeping style gotten better over the years, or does the European style still reign supreme? Keep it up and keep up the goalkeepers educated. It's the most important position for a reason. Pat, shout out Ventura County Fusion. Goalkeeping from afar. I've never met anybody named Goalkeeping from afar, so I'm guessing that's a handle of some sort. So anonymous person, thank you very much.
You don't think that's a real name?
What if the parents just assumed like they're going to be a goalkeeper? They're in the womb. He's like, I don't know. He seems like he wants to catch something. So that's going to be the name. This is really an interesting topic. It's kind of a slippery slope here. Personally, I know a lot of people who've had, let's just say negative stigmas towards the South American style or Mexican style, if you want to call it that. I'd really say more of a South American style and more of a kind of a cultural thing in regards to a style of play. And nowadays, I think with the modern game, it's all kind of blended together. Players are playing from all over the world. It's not like just guys in the EPL or women in the English league, are all from England, So you're getting exposed to so many different types of coaches out there. So, what are your guys' thoughts on this?
I think I agree 100%. It's more blended now. It's not the way it used to be with Higuita and the flamboyancy and the scorpion kick. And so I think that what you find now, because of social media and because you
Bring it back.
and because I'm wondering how his back feels, that's all I think. Because of social media, because you can find that coaching, it's more blended. You see a cross-cultural more of a one-way style of playing goalkeeper.
Yeah, because a lot of things from the South American style have been implemented in the
Totally.
modern
Absolutely.
European game, if you want to call it the European game. The block save, that that's from the South American futsal.
Yeah.
That came right there. The side volley, that's from the South American style as well too.
For sure.
Meanwhile, if you go look at Brazil, Alison Becker and and Ederson and all of that, they're considered some of the top goalkeepers in the world. And they can handle the ball cleanly in the air. They're not slapping balls away or flying through the air or whatever people used to consider the South American style.
Not anymore, that's for sure.
Yeah. So because, again, the world, it's a small world now, and people are being exposed to so many different things. And I think in the past it used to be that people from one part of the world didn't want to learn from another part of the world. And now everyone's taking everything from everybody. Exactly.
Yeah, because I think you'll find you have the South American players that are playing, in the EPL or in the Bundesliga, and they're being coached by European goalkeeper coaches. But it's the other way around as well now.
Yeah, but look at you, Patrick. I mean, you were playing in MLS, and there were coaches there from South America and coaches there from Europe.
Exactly.
Yeah,
and old Americans too, I guess.
I always like to say we're in kind of a golden age of goalkeeping right now, because the information is so prevalent and our ability to access that information is so prevalent with Instagram, with all these different platforms of not only streaming actual soccer games, but all the trainings and all the behind the scenes stuff that in the past you just didn't have access to. And seeing what those are is creating kind of this whole new breed of goalkeeping, and it's really special. It's a really special time to be around. I think in the past, people were kind of just excluded to the area in which they were familiar with. Like if I grew up here in the United States, I probably grew up watching similar goalkeepers to Marcus Hanneman or to Casey Keller.
Right.
And that's kind of the style that you begin to develop because you see them as being the top. Now, with the age of goalkeeping where it is, you have access to see every goalkeeper all over the world.
Well, yeah, now that the U.S. is now television-wise, you can watch any league. You can fall in love with whatever league fits you, and you can follow your favorite goalkeeper. Where before there was nothing on television, and or it was just the EPL. But now you can really follow those keepers and find your niche. But I think it's gotten a lot tighter.
Yeah.
The quality. I mean, even from the last World Cup to this World Cup for the women, I thought 2015.
How outstanding was the world goalkeeping?
Goalkeeping in this World Cup was unbelievable.
Unreal.
And in 2015 was not. There was such a difference. But I think that's part of the metamorphosis of all of this. It was outstanding.
Yeah.
It's crazy because I feel like each goalkeeper, even though there are certain expectations of each goalkeeper, there's just as much individuality when you look from one goalkeeper to the next. And what I love and what I loved about playing so much and researching and studying is I could find, say, a goalkeeper who's playing in Argentina, and he's deciding to solve a problem in a certain way that I had never personally thought of. And now that information, I'm able to access that, which I don't think we've had that in the past. And now it's like you're finding these goalkeepers who have different aspects of goalkeeping from all over the world because they've seen something, they've seen a way to solve a problem, and they're like, dang, that works. Let me try that. Oh, it works for me too. Yep. And that's how we grow as goalkeepers and as a goalkeeping culture, as a union.
For sure.
Yeah. Speaking of the union, we have somebody who met you at an ID camp, and Isabel, I know you've been
UCLA camp.
Yeah, you've been chomping at the bit to talk to Saskia. I mean, by the way, I thank you for your patience. I wanted to even just send you that clip just so that you could get your answers, for the questions from last week. But honestly, we were like, you know what, we're just going to re-record and we're going to do it again because it's just going to sound better. And you know what, I'm probably going to sound, a little bit more eloquent than I did the first time. And so now Saskia is going to give a better answer for you. So thank you again for the 17 questions that you brought.
I thought my answer was good.
Awesome.
To our attention. We'll make sure to try to answer as many as we can in the future. But right now, because we want to move on a little bit, we're just going to start with one. And the one is to you, Saskia, is since you've become a coach, what qualities do you admire most when looking at goalkeepers?
I feel that goalkeepers have to have this ability you have to have a strong back. broad shoulders. You have to be able, especially starting from a young age, you're going to get a lot of goals scored on you. You know, we see our youth club teams and stuff, and the score's like 8-5. You know, it can get crazy, but to be able to get through that in your head, stay positive and realize what you have to develop, it's going to come. And just don't get frustrated. I like that in goalkeepers. I don't want to see goalkeepers that like spend 90% of my time like trying to like cheer up or pick up off the ground. This is a really tough position, emotionally and mentally. You have to be strong. You have to be able to say, all right, this happened. Okay, that was my fault. How do I make it better? Okay, that was your fault. How do we make that better? And just be a natural leader. That's what I also look for.
By the way, Isabel, I'm glad that you worded this in a way that it goes so that the NCAA cannot come after you or Saskia in any way whatsoever. What qualities do you admire when looking at goalkeepers that may be interested in going to UCLA? I don't know. Just what if that's actually what it said? No, I know. Actually, Isabel's playing at a very high level. She's playing for San Juan in the ECNL. Shout out to you because you're obviously killing it. I see your Instagram all the time. Huge insider, by the way, Isabel. Thank you so much for your support.
Absolutely. Just, natural leader. Yeah. Take control. You might not be the captain of the team, but I always say goalkeepers are automatically captains.
Yeah. Let's just open up to Patrick, too. Why not? Why not? Yeah, Isabel, do you want to hear from Patrick? Maybe she does. I don't know. So.
Let's see. Well, I haven't been coaching for very long, but I
humble
think
brag. You've been playing for a while. Okay.
Yeah, I think the biggest quality that I look for in anybody that I work with, because over the years I tend to maybe take on 1 or 2 goalkeepers a year, like wherever I'm playing, and it's just people that I see something in, and what I would say that I like the most is somebody who has like a growth mindset. And if you're not familiar with the growth mindset, it's somebody who is constantly wanting to learn as opposed to somebody who is being uncoachable and thinks that they know what it all means already. Because I can tell you I've been doing this for 25 years and I don't have all the answers. Like there's still a lot of people who know a lot more than I do. And what I admire and what I like to see in the kids, the students that I work with, is that growth mindset and that just hunger to learn and to grow and to get better. And that's what I love about your questions, Isabel. Like we laugh amongst us, but this is awesome. Like this is exactly the type of goalkeeper that I personally was.
Absolutely.
And just keep that. Don't lose that.
Yeah, it's hard. You run into those players that I never thought I'd say that word, are uncoachable.
Yeah.
And, I had that experience like 2 years ago. And, I'm just like, no, but it's that person that's constantly combative and doesn't want to learn and doesn't want to listen and, thinks they know it better. I don't know everything either. But I think I know a little bit to teach you and listen and want to grow. And I agree, your questions are incredible. And, I'll answer all of them.
Yeah.
Trust
We'll get you guys. We'll get you guys connected in a non-recruiting standpoint.
I'm not a college coach, so we're cool.
Technically, you're okay. Yeah.
So.
Technically, you're okay. All right. Let's move on to this next question because it's gonna segue right into our topic of the week. By the way, guys, there's so much going on right now, and again, we wanted to release this last week, so much is happening. We're going to actually do a bonus episode later with the week in goalkeeping. We're going to wrap up all the different events. So make sure after you listen to this episode to download the next episode because we're going to do it in a 2-way split. That way, the people who want to just hear the meat and potatoes, to quote John Bush, they'll get that. And then those guys who want to hear our thoughts on highlights and all that sort of stuff, you guys can get that episode too. So let's go on to Connor Culp from Baltimore. And Connor, we're definitely going to have to meet when we go to convention January 14th to the 19th. United Soccer Coaches Convention.org. No, it's a terrible plug right there.
That was horrible.
Yeah, it was really bad. That one is not going to go in an ad read. This one goes, this is for Mike. I'm 5'6" at 16 and not getting much taller. I feel the struggle of height prejudice. General shot stopping and basic aspects of goalkeeping aside, is there anything I can do to improve all other parts of my game to set myself apart? I've always prided myself on being good in the air due to my jump timing and aggressiveness. Well, thanks, Connor. I'm not 5'6". I'm a little bit taller than 5'6". I might be 5, 6 and a quarter. No, I'm 5'8" and a quarter, according to the doctor.
In the morning.
Yeah, exactly. When the wind is going the right direction. But honestly, dude, we're gonna talk about in the week in goalkeeping. We're gonna do our little talk about Nick Raimondo, and I just mentioned John Bush on Meat and Potatoes. Not the tallest goalkeepers in the world. Fabian Barthez was not one of the tallest goalkeepers in the world.
Campos.
Yeah, Jorge Campos. He was about 5'5". Rene Higuita. The Scorpion guy, he wasn't that big a goalkeeper either. I think goalkeeping is a mindset more so than physical attributes. I know we were just discussing a 6'8" goalkeeper and saying, does he have the attributes, to play at a high level, because goalkeeping, I think, is much more inside than it is all of this, and I'll let you guys, who are much taller than me, discuss
I was about to say,
this. Yeah.
That got you through, didn't it?
Yeah.
Keep telling yourself.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Tell me what it's like up there, guys. Tell me what it's like up there.
How's the air up there?
I think honestly, and being,
Yeah. That's a small. Yeah.
Having a height issue.
What's the best way to phrase that? What's the most politically correct way?
No, he's quick off his line.
What are you?
My favorite is when coaches would be like, "No," he's like, "It's good because the thing is, it's like those
can get
low
down really
you can
fast.
get down to those low shots,
He's very compact.
I think obviously the best way to deal with it is positioning, and make sure you have quality positioning. And this sounds weird, but off the field training as well. You've if you're height challenged, however you want to say that, you have to have some ups. You have to be able to get up. You have to be a Muggsy Bold and be able to slam the ball. You're probably way too young to know who that is.
I know.
But you have to work on that stuff too. Whether it's box jumps, whether it's clean and jerks, whatever. You have to have the ability to get up with your timing, with your positioning, and get the ball, because it is a must in goalkeeping. You have to be able to take down a cross. But I would say number one, absolutely positioning.
I love that crossover, by the way, the crossover to basketball. I'd say the more relevant version would be Nate Robinson.
Yeah.
Yes.
See, I aged myself.
With the Muggsy Bogues reference.
Yeah.
I mean, you could have gone Spud Webb, which slam dunk contest, Nate Robinson slam dunk contest.
This guy throws it down, and he's
Nate
like
Robinson's unreal. Yeah.
He's like 5'6".
Okay, Nate Robinson.
Like
I aged
unreal.
myself.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look at even Isaiah Thomas, before his injury, he could throw it down too.
Yeah.
Although he never did in games and stuff. Although he did do it in an All-Star game.
Look,
Wow, this is like a
So-
totally different podcast.
This is
Off
our
to
point.
basketball.
This is our point, though. This
If you
is
want to hear our basketball podcast, that'll be coming out next.
we're adding that to our.
Yeah.
What my point was, where I was going with that is, he just decided that he wasn't going to let that stop him, because I'm sure if anybody's going to face height prejudice, it's going to be a guy like that. It's going to be people that are in a position where the people they're competing with are like 6'10".
Right.
They're massive, but he's so skilled, and he found the way to be, to make it work for him and to be an asset to a team. And the same thing is completely relevant in this circumstance. And we're going to talk about it later on with Raimondo and John Bush.
Yep.
And for somebody who is height challenged,
I like how I'm just used as an example. It's just like
We
this
all
big
point.
point.
I was actually gesturing to Saskia because she phrased it so well.
Height challenge.
For those of you who are, facing this same battle, this uphill battle, I would say that one of the things that Nick and John Bush do so well is their controllables. Like, if you pay attention to the things in a game that they can control, they can't control a ball going into the upper corner. Like, that's probably just a good shot or whatever. But any situation that involves something they can control, they do it almost perfectly.
Yeah.
And that was one of the first things that I personally noticed about John Bush, and why I took such an interest in him and his career, is everything that he can control, everything inside his window, everything that he can do to affect the game in a positive way, he does. And I love that.
Yeah, I think we said Nick Raimondo is the same way. Like,
Nick Raimondo is exactly the same way.
Perfect what you can.
And one of the things that Nicky does so well is his positioning. Saskia mentioned it earlier. His positioning, he is 1 or 2 steps ahead of whatever is taking place on the field. So just because somebody says, "Oh, you got to be a certain height," think about how else you can be of value. I mean, Nicky does it with his feet, with his
hands.
Yeah, his decision making. I don't know if you remember playoffs a couple years ago, and it's very vague for those of you who are listening. But I think they were playing against Portland, and it was towards the end of the game. Portland's got basically a breakaway. There's a player running right down the middle of the field. The guy with the ball, it's like a two-man break, right? He whips it across, and Nicky is already on this like 16 yards out to deal with this, because he knew as soon as that outside player put his head down that he was crossing that ball into the inside. And he makes this play that a lot of goalkeepers don't even think about doing. And just because he's willing to gamble and to do what he has to do to positively infect that game.
And he's also a step ahead. He's reading the game so well, which is just such an asset that he gets that jump. And that's what it takes.
And speaking of reading the game, I kind of want to use that to segue into organization, because, part of positioning, part of reading the game is having your team in a nice solid shape, which allows you those opportunities to be in the right position and to be able to cut off those angles and those sorts of things, and allows you to basically you were talking about those controllables. When your team is positioned right, when your team is organized, it makes your controllables much easier, because things are, the game is kind of being played to you rather than you playing to the game. So for those of you guys out there who might not be familiar with what organization is, maybe you're a parent out there or a younger goalkeeper and you're not familiar with the terminology. Saskia, can you kind of explain what organization is?
Well, it's organization. It's literally verbally organizing your team in front of you. It's a chess match in front of you. You have to be able to manipulate the game in front of you as a goalkeeper to make what I consider the best save, which is no save at all.
I like those saves.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, but that means that everybody on your team's on the same page. So if you're telling Jan on the outside, right, to push somebody wide, she knows what you're saying. You want the terminology to be correct. You want your whole defense, everybody to understand quick sound bites, organization, where to push the ball, but it's quick. It's not a repetitive thing. If you're organizing the weak side, make sure that, Jan, watch your inside man. Jan, watch weak side. That's the end of it. Then focus on the ball. Putting all those pieces in the right place in the game makes it so predictable. And it makes the shot on goal, what you want is for that attacker to see nothing but you. And that's what you're doing in front of you organizational-wise. You're manipulating it to either make no save or the easiest save at all.
Yeah, and I think
Did that make
no, it made a lot of sense, and
yeah,
I'm glad first off that your player went to Jan, because I remember what happened when she went to Sally last week when we did this the first time.
I changed the name.
Sally was always out of position, so
Jan
at least Jan is on point.
Jan's on point.
Jan's on point.
Sally.
But I think what we talked about last week, which is a good point, and bring it up again, was everybody's got to be on the same page. What I don't like is when coaches or parents come to me, because as a goalkeeper coach, other coaches are like, why isn't Pat, who's my goalkeeper in this situation, why isn't she communicating or stuff like that? Yeah. But make sure that your team knows the communication, knows the words, knows the verbiage. Get your defense together. Practice it. These are our pinpoint words: clear, away, keeper, force them right, force them left, weak side. Everybody's got to know what that means.
Yeah. So Patrick, how do you know if your team?
Pat's in goal for me.
Yeah, Pat's in goal for you. So Patrick, how do you know if Jan's organized? How do you know if she's in position? No. How do you know? If your back line is organized?
Honestly, a lot of that comes from coaching and just from going through it for hours and hours and hours. Which, you not only need to know what your role is, you need to know the other players' roles.
Absolutely.
And I was told this from a pretty early age. Like, you need to know everybody's role, because you need to know how their role and them knowing how to do their role affects your role, if that makes sense.
No, it makes 100. Yes, absolutely.
I think that's so important, and it really comes from clear, concise coaching from the head coach as to what your defensive structure is, what your overall structure is, where you're going to be vulnerable, and how you solve those problems.
Yeah, it definitely comes from the coach. Like I said, I can't stand when coaches like, so-and-so doesn't communicate. What do you want them to communicate? Like, have you done choreography with your team? Have you slowed everything down and said, in this situation, this is where you're supposed to be, this is where you're supposed to be, and Pat, you're the one that has to look over and make sure everybody, and then it filters forward. Your center backs, everybody, same communication, same terminology. But unless the coach is doing it, it's not just going to happen.
Yeah. And one example that I would love for a lot of you young goalkeepers out there to watch is Jan Oblak with Atletico Madrid, because that's a very organized back line. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people out there who are not goalkeeper aficionados don't understand why Jan Oblak is such a great goalkeeper, because it's not the most exciting goalkeeping in the world. It's not flashy, but they're always organized, and he always gets to make the simple save.
And that's what you want.
And that's what you want. And that's why as a goalkeeper, you should watch what Jan is doing off the ball. And if you can just go back and just watch, just go on YouTube. Maybe not YouTube, maybe actually DVR some Atletico games and actually watch off the ball what he's doing, because a lot of times with YouTube it's just gonna be the highlights of the top hand corner save, and which is great and all that, but that's not goalkeeping. Right. Goalkeeping is this stuff. Goalkeeping is making sure that your system of play, your back line is keeping that system of play in order. And one of the things that I always see is a lot of times, and we're going to talk about it earlier, is when you're disorganized, it leads to bad situations.
Oh, absolutely. A good example is, like, how many times have you practiced your walls? Like, do your substitutes know where their role is when they come into the wall? All your goalkeeper should have to do in a free kick situation is to call out the number in the wall and to get on their near post and organize it. That should be it. But anybody coming into that game should know who the person is that steps in front of the ball, should know who is in a 2-man to 3-man to 4-man wall, who's just the one person that's up in front. Like, I know you laughed when we talked about this. You're like, were you just on the most organized teams ever? And I go, kinda.
Yeah.
It kinda was.
Oh, really? The U.S. women's national team was one of the most organized teams ever.
But we practiced this stuff. Like, we did this all the time.
Yeah.
And like I said, not just with your starting players,
right.
It's with your substitutes. It's with anybody that can be in that situation. So, whether it's corner kicks, how you set up corner kicks, you have to practice this stuff. That's organization.
So let's talk about that. Let's talk about set pieces and corners, because this is, I think, one of those panic situations I see a lot with young goalkeepers. And it's literally like, because they don't seem confident. A lot of times, like, they're like, get on my near post. No, not you. Right. And if the players are hearing the lack of confidence in your voice, whether you're right or wrong, it doesn't matter. But you need to be confident, because they're going to feel better and they're going to have that kind of energy. And, maybe that wasn't the right player to play on that post right there. Maybe another player would have been a better player. But they're there, and at least, you made a decision, Right. And that's, especially when you're a young goalkeeper and you're learning how to make decisions. Whether they're right or wrong, you're going to learn from them.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
And honestly, if your goalkeeper is in that situation, it's probably due to poor head coaching. I mean, if I'm being really critical, because if there's no communication to them as to exactly what they're supposed to organize, and if the players around them don't know what they're supposed to be doing,
absolutely.
I mean, there's already a lot that us as goalkeepers, we have to know, and we have to see, and we have to and we got to focus on this ball that's about to be whipped into our box into a dangerous area. And if that's not your focus, chances are you're going to be focused on the wrong things. Mm-hmm. And then, I mean, granted, there are situations where you have to make an audible, right? Like, right. you have to see something that's happening that's outside your plans and your coach's plans, and you say, hey, I need to fix this. Right. Maybe a guy steps into your area and is unmarked. A guy or girl steps in your area unmarked, and you have to pull somebody in to cover that person. Situations like that, yeah, that's on you. But the overall general shape of these set pieces should be dictated to you by your leader.
Absolutely. It's 100%.
It's all your coach's fault, guys.
No, but it is. In this situation, it is. And I've seen time and time again where coaches are like, oh, we need to go over free kicks because we had a free kick this weekend in a game. I'm like, this is something you need to do all the time.
Every week,
You need to have sessions where for 20 minutes or 10 minutes at the end of your session, line up and do corner kicks. line up and do a couple free kicks, or when you're doing scrimmages, inter-club scrimmages, do controlled scrimmages. Stop, call a free kick.
Yeah,
have them we did that all the time on the U.S. team, all the time in college, everything. Controlled scrimmages are huge. Have somebody out there say, free kick right there. And then see what happens, and it's instant. And that helps.
Yeah, and have them run it 5 times.
Absolutely.
And just so you keep seeing the same situation or the same version of the situation. Maybe you move the ball 10 yards,
right.
But you say, hey, run it again. Hey, run it again. Okay, here's where we broke down. Here's where we fixed it. This is what we need to do next time. And then you just kind of gain this more this greater awareness of exactly what it is you're supposed to be doing, and you can fill in those gaps in information on the fly.
Yeah.
Now, young goalkeeper coaches out there listening to this, because I think this is really important for you, because you're working with a lot of head coaches, and you need to bring these things up to the coaches sometimes, especially at the club level where you're working with multiple teams at a time. It's not your job just to run goalkeeper sessions and be like, okay, well, we're doing some shot stopping, some footwork and handling, maybe some distributions, and then I wash my hands of these kids type of thing. You need to know what's going on at the club with these teams. You need to talk to these coaches who are around. Okay, hey, how'd they play this weekend? What happened? Blah blah blah. Oh, you know what? You should go over this with them. And make sure that when you're doing set pieces with them that they're listening to this, that sort of thing. Because that's a goalkeeper coach as opposed to a goalkeeper trainer, in my opinion.
Absolutely. And you have to know what your kid, you can't go to every game on the weekend. I get that. I have the same issue. But at least I get a report back, and coaches are open to say, hey, Finn was kind of a little bit behind as well on a free kick that went into the upper 90 and this and that and the other, and getting a breakdown of it and understanding if your keeper that you're training was out of position and but your coaches have to verbalize that as well and want to learn. It can't just be like, oh, we got scored on a free kick this weekend. Well, have you practiced them? Why don't I come over to the practice today, and why don't we go over it? I'll stand in goal with the goalkeeper and make sure they're setting themselves right. Make sure they're setting the wall right. You have to get it done. Yeah,
and young goalkeeper coaches out there, don't let the head coaches be territorial.
Please.
Don't do that, because a lot of times it's just a lack of education or understanding of what you can bring to the table. They're not aware of what you can bring to the table, and you know what? Make yourself available.
Really don't know.
No.
Yeah, honestly.
I was gonna ask Saskia. I was gonna say, what percentage of head coaches do you think that you've had actually know goalkeeping?
They don't, and I thank God I work with head coaches that are humble enough to admit that. Just like I'm humble enough to admit certain things I don't understand about coaching field players.
Same.
But that communication has to be, because 90% don't understand goalkeeping. They don't know what the view is from that position, how to set people up, why you do certain things. And even in training, like positioning, body weight, everything. I have coaches that have looked at me and be like, I had no idea that you're supposed to be like body weight forward and attack the ball at this angle. I go, no, we're not just clones. We don't just stand back there and hopefully get hit by the ball. But they don't know.
Yeah, and with that lack of knowledge, there's such like misconceptions as to how to solve problems.
Absolutely.
So let's talk about what a young goalkeeper out there who, let's just say, they don't know what to do in an organization standpoint. Again, we're saying get clear, concise, and direct with your communication. Have a good rapport with your goalkeeper coach and with your head coach. But what on themselves, what individually can they do? Like, what are 3 bullet points that you would give them that would help them organize?
My number one thing is direct communication. It's always identify whoever you're talking to by name. You can, and I always use the analogy that it's the 911 analogy, where if there's a group of people and there's an accident, you say somebody call 911, nobody's going to call 911. But if you say, Pat, pressure that ball, right? If Mike, pressure that ball, now the responsibility is designated to that person, and they will get it done. Yep. If you say, hey, step to the ball, and you're crazy, nobody's going to get it done.
Right.
Yeah, they're gonna point the finger at everybody else, kind of like the game clip that we'll have later from the MLS game.
Yeah. Speaking of that, guys, like I said, we're going to split up this episode into 2 different pieces. So for those of you guys, who are not interested in the highlights. By the way, for those of you guys who think that we just do highlights like SportsCenter, we don't. We actually break it down from a goalkeeping standpoint, and it's actually really beneficial to you guys. So for everybody who just turns it off at around 45 minutes and goes, well, the topic's done with. I don't really care about NWSL or whatever, and I'm just using NWSL as an example.
Maybe they're wrong.
Maybe the wrong choice right there, but you know what I mean.
I'm
like
not hurt.
Just a random league.
Again,
I'm not.
You're making
I'm
it
making
better.
this so much
It's
worse.
okay. You're
If you don't care about
your height challenge, Alex, I'll forgive you.
if you don't care about the English Championship, and like, well, I don't care about what happened with Leeds, this weekend.
He's trying to save
you're
himself.
losing out because we're breaking these down from a goalkeeping standpoint. There's a lot of teachable moments in a lot of these games.
But then again, that's a good way to also learn organization.
Yeah,
is to listen to this kind of stuff and see it from our perspective and understand why this happened. Because we'll also pick apart the defense that messed up as well, and tell you where you should have forced the ball or what was wrong.
Yeah.
But that's my number 1 bullet point.
Yeah.
Designate responsibility.
I would also say that know what the most important communication is in that moment. Absolutely. So if there's a ball that's in an immediate scoring opportunity, don't be talking to somebody that's 40 yards away. That goes without saying. But the more direct you are, A, and the more specific you are, B, is going to help everybody. I was always taught name and direction. And so it's
specific.
Sally, step right, or
Sally.
Sally, step. It's very specific, very concise, gets whatever you need done in that moment done quickly.
Yeah, I think I find with younger goalkeepers and stuff, when they learn, I have a voice and I can start speaking, now you just start chatting away. And it's like, oh my gosh, now stop talking. So you don't want to be that joystick goalkeeper where you're telling everybody what to do, even if you're on offense and everything. People are going to tune you out.
Yeah.
It's got to be name, direction, precise. Keep it to defense, in my opinion. There's no reason you really need to be telling your offense what to do, just like you don't want an attacker yelling keeper for you, which is a humongous pet
there's
peeve.
nothing worse than have you ever had a sub or something like that, and they're walking by and they're telling you what to do?
Or they call keeper and you weren't going to come for that ball, and now it's just
I
a
just
debacle.
shred those people.
So just, yes, exactly, precise, and don't talk too much.
Yeah, don't be a sportscaster. Don't be doing play-by-play because cross it. It's like, dude,
nobody's listening to you.
No one's listening to you.
And then when you have something you need to say, nobody's listening to you.
Yeah.
Exactly, because it all becomes white noise. Kind of like last week's episode we recorded. There was a lot of white noise. All right, guys, we're going to take a break and we're going to be back with the week in goalkeeping. For those of you guys who are not going to be tuning into the next episode, contact at InsideThe18Media.com if you want to leave a message and find a different guest that you want to have on. Not a different guest. That sounded terrible.
I'm like, wow.
Another
Saskia, we love
guest
you.
suggestions. I'm losing my voice here.
You know what?
Do I need to sit between you?
I know. If you have questions for me, you can check me out at Saskia Webber on Instagram. It's just at Saskia Webber. Send me a message there. I'll answer your questions, even about height and everything like that. Thanks.
Isabel, reach out to Saskia.
You've gotten a little shorter.
I've gotten way shorter right here.
Trying to hide behind.
I'm literally hiding behind this thing. Oh, this is why we do this stuff, guys. Patrick, where can people reach out to you?
You can just find me at Inside the 18 as well, or at my personal Instagram and Twitter, just Patrick McLean 24.
All right. We may just completely delete all of this right here. No. Contact at InsideThe18Media.com. If you're looking for a specific topic that you'd like us to discuss, or if you want Saskia to come back, please let us know that you want her to come back.
Gosh, you're trying to make up for it.
Oh
or if you want a new host, let us know.
Oh, my gosh. All right, guys. We're going to take a break, and then we'll be back with the week in goalkeeping. See you in a second.